Today we're going to be taking a look at the recent Archer showcase posted up by Capcom and IGN. If you haven't seen the Vocation trailer, it's pretty short, only about 50 seconds, and it does contain some new footage along with some old. Let's go ahead and start off with some of the trick arrows that were shown in the Archer Vocation trailer. The first skill we've seen shown off is something that we've known for a while, which is Exploding Shot. It will fire a loaded arrow that will stick to any foes or terrain, and after a certain amount of time, or if the arrow is struck again, it will then explode with a large radius. As we can see in this first clip, it does knock down several harpies as well as apply fire damage, so it's obviously something that's very useful against a large number of enemies. Now, if you've ever played Dragon Dogma 1, this is similar to the blast arrow, which was in that game, and it was a consumable arrow that you could equip to any character with a bow. However, in this case, it does appear that this is a skill applied to the archer, which means that it's not a consumable, although I did do a bit of research. It does seem that our boy Pinecon does have a note here that it does consume one explosive arrow. I haven't been able to find anything that corroborates this, but this seems to be the case for several other skills that we'll point out right now. The next skill we see appears to be Blighting Shot, which seems to coat the arrow with a sort of poison substance, which will not only poison the character it's hit with, but it will also appear to put them to sleep. We can see this with the ragdoll effect that's applied to the ogre, and then he awakes as soon as the next shot comes out. Again, it seems that this will consume one blighting arrow whenever it's used, although I do not have any corroborating evidence for this. If there is evidence out there of it consuming a specific arrow type, please put it in the comments because I would very much like to see it. And finally, the last arrow skill we have appears to be Drenching Shot, which will consume one drenching arrow. Similar to Exploding Shot, it appears to place a timed arrow which has a water element applied to it, which will then explode after a certain amount of time or after a hit to the arrow is applied. This will then cause water to expel in a large area, which appears to do a fair bit of damage to these Geosaurians here. This is especially interesting because usually monsters will have weaknesses to the 5 archmagics, which are fire, holy, dark, ice, and lightning. Although in this case it appears to be damage which is more linked to the water element, which is something that wasn't present in Dragon's Dogma 1, which could be present in Dragon's Dogma 2. It's not currently known if the water element will actually be a factor here, but it is interesting to note nonetheless. And the last skill I want to point out is this last powerful attack, which appears to be Dire Arrow from Dragon's Dogma 1. Now, the reason I think it's Dire Arrow and not Heavenly Shot is because if you see at the end of this clip here as the camera fades out, the Arisen actually isn't out of stamina, which if we look at the PlayStation article here, we can see that Heavenly Shot is a Meister's teaching which drains all stamina once it is complete. It seems that in this case the Arisen is indeed not out of stamina, so therefore this is more akin to Dire Arrow. In other news for the Archer Vocation, it could also be noted that Heavenly Shot appears to borrow very similar aspects from Great Gamble from Dragon's Dogma 1. The interesting thing to note here would be that Great Gamble was present on the Ranger Vocation, which dealt exclusively with longbows as opposed to short bows for both Strider and Assassin. However, if we look at the Archer's description here on the Capcom website, it appears to describe Archer as having only a singular bow, meaning that both longbows and short bows may be lumped into one singular vocation. And oddly enough, it's also corroborated if we take a look at Dragon's Dogma Online and the description for the Hunter Vocation, which exclusively dealt with bows and special arrows. It's well known at this point that it appears that Dragon's Dogma 2 is borrowing quite a bit from Dragon's Dogma Online and how their vocations worked. The most obvious example for vocations being that vocations are now centered around one specific weapon type, such as thieves having only daggers, archers only having bows, magic archer appearing to only have a magic bow as opposed to daggers as well, and so on. You could also make the case that vocation masters were in Dragon's Dogma Online, and those are being carried over to Dragon's Dogma 2 in the form of vocation meisters. For more information on vocations and what my personal predictions were about a month or two back, you may check this video here. And with that, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you again real soon.